Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are. My name is Gerald Leonard, and I have Donald Robinson with me, and I have a guest, a good friend of mine, Mike Rayburn. Now, let me tell you about Mike. I met Mike in 2015 at an NSA conference at a jam session.
That's right.
And that's where we first met each other and kind of played music.
Yeah, and it was cool for me. I'm going to introduce you first because I got in there and I played with people that NSA right and left, but we all of a sudden there's a bass player who could actually play, and I was like, "Whoa, this is great, man!" I didn't have to tell you four chord. You know, like you had it, man. That was very good.
Yeah, we had a good time. It was a lot of fun, and I think that night I met a ton of the guys, Jim Cathcart and you know, yourself and a bunch of other guys. So let me tell you a little bit about Mike. So Mike is a two-time, not a one-time, but a two-time TEDx presenter. He's an innovative entrepreneur, and he's an NSA Hall of Fame speaker. Mike uses his guitar, his world-class guitar performing, really his virtuoso guitar performing, and comedy to teach innovation and performance to corporations around the world. Mike's also headlined it at Carnegie Hall multiple times, not one time, but multiple times, and has shared the stage with the Beach Boys, Maroon 5, John Oates, and many other musical guests. Mike's also performed his presentations over 5,000 times for organizations and including the Fortune 100. And besides all of that, Mike is also headlining his own show in Las Vegas, where he's performed that a number of times and performed over in 20 different countries. And you can regularly hear him on Sirius XM and the morning radio show nationwide. Mike, thanks so much. I didn't know all this about you until I read your profile. I'm kidding.
I heard that. I thought, he's old. He's been around. Yeah, and speaking of Donald, you're in Philly. Yeah, John Oates, Hall and Oates.
Oh yeah.
Was that in Philly as well?
Yeah.
That's where they're from. I didn't play with them.
Yeah.
I played
okay.
with them in different places. But yeah.
Well, I'm going to start this off with one of the questions I usually ask people that about their stuff, their career is, you know, what do you think's made you successful throughout your career so far, Mike?
Well, obviously, I mean, there's a lot of things that come into it for anybody. There's the obvious things, you know, hey, you got to practice. Hey, you got to get up every day and do it. I would say the key, though, to all of that is consistency. I have a poster in my, that's just around the corner right there that says, the race is not always to the swift, but to those who keep on running. And I keep on running, you know. Yeah. I keep showing up. You keep trying to get better every day, a little bit every day, a little bit every day. You get up when you're not, knock you down, and I just keep showing up, and I won't go away, you know. And so I think that's a lot of it. But there's, you know, the fundamentals, depending on who's listening and what level they are in their life, career, you know, art form, whatever it is they're doing. Yeah. I think the importance is there's two things that have to be there. Number one, you have to have a knack for it, an ability, a talent for it. And everybody's got an ability or a talent somewhere. It's just not always in the thing you want it to be. But you got to have a knack for it, and you have to have a passion for it. It's got something that you're good at, something that you love. And so there are things that I'm good at that I don't love. And there are things that I love that I'm not very good at. But I've found that one that and everybody's like that.
Right.
There's finding that one thing that you both love and you got a knack for. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. My motto is life is a journey, not a destination. You know, we focus so much sometimes on just trying to get something done, but we got to really enjoy the journey as we go through it. And what you just said, the purpose behind what we do, and the passion is what really keeps us going. Because, you know, as musicians, we have our peaks and valleys. I mean, we have some great times and sometimes that just, you know, we trying to figure it all out. So,
right. Do you find, Donald, I'm wondering, do you find that because, we always have these outcomes we want to achieve.
Right.
But if I'm not enjoying the process of achieving it, it's
That's
not
right.
worth it. That's kind of what you're saying.
yeah, it's kind of like, you know, some people who get into the business, they see the fame of it and they think of the money and they're like, oh, that seems fun. but they don't realize it's a lot of hard work that we have to go through.
There's a lot of work that we got to. There's a lot of work we got to do here.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. So my pastor actually pointed this out to me, and I hadn't realized it. He said, "Mike, I know exactly why you're successful." I said, "Okay, I'm listening." He said, "You fell in love with practicing."
Yes, it is.
Eureka! He's right, and I didn't even know it. I do. I love practicing, but you got to fall in love with practicing because it's not about just the performance. It's love getting up, doing your scales.
I think somebody did a TEDx about that somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody.
So, my question is, I always, we're going through this period of COVID and all of this, and me being a musician and a producer and doing a lot of things remotely, how are you handling a lot of the situation? Is that affecting what you're doing right now? How's that working out for you?
Yeah, well, other than the dismantling of my career and my income, no. Well, everyone's had to pivot, and so I've had to pivot, and so the pivot is to virtual, and so my presentations. I mean, yes, I'm a musician. Yes, I'm a comedian, and yes, I do what. But I'm first and foremost a speaker. And so I use guitar and comedy to teach innovation and performance, innovation and change. And so luckily, everyone's suddenly going, we need to learn how to manage change. And it's like, well, that's exactly what I do. So I've just had to pivot to doing it virtually. So I built, first thing I did was I brought over a friend of mine who's an engineer. And he's everything. He can do. This is a guy he's one of those people that you just say, could you do this? Could you do my real estate deal? Could you fix my refrigerator? And he can do it all. He can do anything. Okay. His name is Jake Keck. And I brought Jake over and we built a virtual studio. And so it's got 2 camera shoots. So I can do one camera where I'm talking and it's got a monitor next to me. I've got a wood wall as the background. And I've got, so the main camera that I'm presenting and having the slides are there right next to me. And then I have another camera that gives me a close-up on the guitar. And then I have another a third frame that's just the slides, nothing else in the photo. And I can do in screen and screen. And I can do that all from a little switcher. And if I can run it, anybody can run it. And I'm not kidding about that. I'm not a tech guy.
I'm so impressed because you have foot switches. You have foot switches to change the camera and change your slides.
Well, no, I have a foot switch that changes the slides.
Okay.
I have hand switches the switcher.
Oh, okay. So you have a hand switch for the cameras?
Yeah, and the cool thing is it's just off the camera, so it's not in the shoot. So you don't see me there with a switcher. Yeah, I mean, you could tell I might have gone, my hand went over there, but it's like right now you can't see what my hand is doing.
Right.
But you can switch the cameras that way.
Gotcha.
So I built that. It's really good. It's not like you're going to shoot Channel 3 News from there, but it's it's broadcast quality picture. But we all had to do that because, and then the other thing we have to do is educate our clients because clients don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what's going on. I mean, they're as confused as we are. And so we have to go in and say, no, you don't need to push your event into 2021. Here's why you need to have it in 2020, because right now it's never been more necessary. So anyway, that's the big switch, Donald, that I've had to do. And I imagine you too. I mean, we all have.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been doing pretty much remote, using Zoom and found some other, software that works really well. And I'm actually surprised of, I think it's still going back to the passion and the drive, but, I just dug in. I had this time free now and I'm like, hey, let me really dig into this remote thing. And it's been rewarding and I've been getting more clients than I expected.
There you go. And that's the thing, man. I think we should not squander this opportunity.
Right.
And I say that with respect to the challenges that are going on in the world right now. I'm not trying to play that.
Yeah.
But we know that's happening there. So the question is, in the meantime, if we're not, because I was traveling all the time. I was on a plane, I would fly 125 to 150,000 miles a year. And all of a sudden it's almost zero. And so I've got this time home. Well, what can I create with that time? What can I write? What can I practice? What can I do that's new? How can I help? It's like, it's an opportunity to build things that are either effective now for people within a virtual environment or they're going to be effective once we get out of this to a certain degree. Things are going to change anyway.
Yeah.
But if we get moving on, have an online learning program you can sell, or to have a new recording like Gerald's been doing, to have a new book, to have a new whatever, to use this time effectively.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So Mike, where you are right now, obviously you didn't wake up one day and you just found yourself there. So tell us a little bit about your story and your journey of how did you get from, where you started from to how you got to where you are now? Like, what was that journey like for you?
Okay, well, quickly, I'm from a sports family, totally athletic. My dad was a football coach, wrestling coach, and math teacher. And so I played football and I wrestled. I also swam competitively, and I was an athlete.
Okay, so that explains the bike riding and the athletics, because I was trying to figure, like, where does this guy become such an athlete from? Okay, now go ahead.
I just got back from the gym too. And then I threw on the jacket because you guys had to outclass me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all true.
It's not about fun.
Gerald and I have decided to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, like
I said, he's not going to embarrass me. I'm going to wear my jacket.
Well, and then I had to fall in line. Anyway, but my dad gave me a guitar, or he had a guitar, and I started messing around with it. And we had an old upright piano that I learned to play, and music made sense to me. And so then with the guitar, I just messed around with it. And he gave me this little guitar when I was like, I think it was for a birthday. It was I think it was my 8th birthday, 8th, 9th, or 10th birthday, which means, I hate to say this, but it was like 50 years ago, which means I should be a lot better than I am. But anyway, so I just started messing, and it was my family. I mean, I have zero sob story. I've done my work in my life, but I had an extremely fatally dysfunctional family, like crazy dysfunctional. And abusive, blah, 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 all this stuff. Done with that, I'm good. But the guitar was my escape. So, a lot of, you hear like Bon Jovi and different people I've heard interviewed, I learned to play guitar so I could meet girls. It's like, I learned to play guitar so I could live, so I could survive, so I could get away from my family. And so it was my escape. And so I started playing live, and I liked that. And I knew in 8th grade that music was going to be my life. It just hit me, there's a strength to that, to knowing what you want to do, knowing the guitar's going to be in your hand for the rest of your life. In 8th grade, that's a good thing. I still played all the sports and everything, but then in college, I switched to, I became a classical guitar major. Mm-hmm. And classical guitar, I had a double degree. I had a degree in classical guitar performance. And then I had another degree in guitar and music business.
Okay.
And so I learned the business side of it, which is, I say that to anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm the last guy in the world who wants to embrace business, but you got to, because most artists' financial plan is to out-earn their ignorance. That's what they're trying to do. They don't want to learn how to do finances, so they hope to make enough money that their mistakes don't matter.
Right.
Okay, and that's a loser's game.
Yeah.
And so I learned about business, and I learned about, to this day, the best class I ever took in college was marketing. I had a great teacher, that was part of it, but I used what I learned in that class every day of my life. Every single day I learned what I learned there.
Wow.
I used it.
That's great.
Anyway, I went on with there, and I started playing college. I started playing bars, and each time, I think one of the keys is two things. One is to every night try to make it better. Try to push a little bit. A lot of people just kind of lay back and just do their thing, and it's like each night I would try to turn it into a concert environment. Take a bar and try to make it everybody listening, and concert-ish kind of thing or whatever, and of course it didn't work every time, but I got better at that. I went on to play, and the other thing is to pay attention to what works. A lot of people don't, how we've seen, Gerald and I know, speakers who there's good speakers, but they have like one section of their speech that's awkward, it doesn't work right or whatever. And then you see them 3 years later, and the same section is awkward and doesn't work right. And it's like, have you not realized that that's not working? Now that joke isn't funny. That story doesn't work. It doesn't make your point. So develop a sensitivity for what works and what doesn't. Is it coming across? And so I went from that to playing colleges. For 16 years, I played 1,800 college shows all over the U.S. and Canada. And then, and now keep in mind, this is all musician, entertainer.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, though, my dad, whom I had a horrible relationship with, did two things amazing. He gave me a guitar, and in 11th grade, he gave me a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by a guy named Maxwell Maltz.
Yeah.
And it's about the power of the mind. It's about the power of focus, the power of belief, the power of, like, if you believe something strong enough, how you can make it, which is biblical, which is, you look at any religious text or any whatever, they'll all talk about this. So Maxwell Maltz kind of put science behind it.
Yeah.
And so I was doing stuff like visualization and goal setting and planning and objectives and things like that all the time. But my artist friends didn't get that. And so I just kept it to myself, and personal development and everything. So finally, when I was about 38, 39, just before I was 40, someone asked me about joining the National Speakers Association. Jana Stanfield.
Okay.
You might know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jana Stanfield asked me, and she said, she saw me at a comedy club. She saw me at a comedy club, and I had this little motivational thing I did at the end. And she said, after the show, she said, oh, she's a songwriter. She'd written hits for Reba McEntire and other folks. Good songwriter. And a good speaker too. And she said, Mike, you're clean, you're funny, and you have a message. You're a speaker, and you don't even know it. And I said, what's a speaker? and I'm in the Speaker Hall of Fame, and I didn't even know what a speaker was back then. But anyway, so I joined, and then I realized I could do a keynote presentation where I was teaching innovation, creativity thinking, impossibility thinking, innovative thinking. I could teach that, and that goes to applies directly to change, which is what I teach now.
Right.
And I could teach that, but I would teach it using guitar and comedy as my delivery rather than PowerPoint and statistics. And so it made sense, and it made sense to me. I had no idea if there'd be a market for it, but this is the other thing about me. I love to do things no one's done. And it's hard to find things that no one's done, but I like to do things no one's done. And so no one had created a keynote presentation using, I don't mean to sound proud, but advanced guitar performance and comedy to illustrate the points.
Yeah.
Luckily, it hit a niche. And so things took off pretty quickly. And then, which is why I get what you do, Gerald. I understand what you're doing. It makes sense. I get the base thing, but there's a connection between that and business.
Yep.
So anyway, that's kind of maybe a little long-winded, but that's basically what happened.
No, that's great, because just the time that I've spent with you, I think one of the things that I've picked up is about goal setting, and I always have set goals, but I think when I went out to Las Vegas to your What If weekend, and you talked about the writing of your goals on a daily basis, and I really took that to heart, right? Yep. And I kind of came up with my list of goals, and I started doing that, and it's been like somebody put a power pack jet on my back, and
boom, I love it.
It's like I'm relaxed and enjoying life, but I'm writing out these goals every morning, and things are starting to happen like really fast, and I'm going like, wow, this is amazing. But it's just taking that concept of, programming your mind every morning with your goals, and by handwriting them, you're neurologically getting involved, your body's getting involved, it stays with you all the time, and it becomes what you think about, and what you think about and focus on all the time is what you start getting, and stuff starts coming together. Yeah.
Which works great, because you go, oh, wow, I dreamed of that goal and I got it. Or you go, that which I've feared has come upon me. It works either way. It works. It's a powerful tool. It will work to prosper you, and it will work to destroy you.
Yes. You got to make sure you write down the right goals.
And the problem is the default. If you don't take control of that, in other words, take control of what your thoughts are. Take control of like programming your mind in the morning. I don't mean like in some weird way, but just writing your goals down. Reading affirmations. Reading something positive, okay? If you don't take control of that, the default is usually a negative.
Exactly.
What you come to easily, it's more easy. It's easier to gossip. It's easier to think negative things about people. It's easier to go to, oh, it's never gonna work, or this world is screwed up, or all these kind of negative thoughts, and that's what you get. you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
or if you take control of it and you think, oh, you think, God is conspiring with the world to help me. You think, I am a man in full. You think, I am a money magnet. Money comes to me freely and frequently and abundantly every day. If you think things like that over and over again, they tend to happen.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm just gotta say, I am motivated by just you speaking right now. Actually, by the both of you. What you over in the corner here, well, yeah, there. I have my little whiteboard, and I'm not even gonna put up all the things that my to-do list and things that I want to do. But man, that's some awesome stuff. I am really motivated just by hearing you speak.
Well, I get jazzed. You're saying that feeds me. That's why I do it. It's like, I know I'm in the right thing because I live for that reaction. I figured out, see, I knew my gifts for music and comedy and entertainment, you know, I understood that. But about at the same time, when I was about 38, 39 years old, I have a friend who said, Mike, I think your gift is exhortation. And I said, what the F is that? You know, and I was like, what? I have no idea. What's exhortation? Right. Exhortation, okay, what it means is to strongly encourage, to inspire, to edify, to lift up.
Right.
What he said it to me was, it matters to you that the people around you do better. And I almost cried because he hit it. It was like, that's exactly right. And I didn't even know it. And so when you said that, Donald, I just went, this is why I do it. Yes, I want to shake the world and say, you can do so much more than you realize. You have so much more ability than you realize. You are capable of creating this amazing life. And you don't even realize how actually easy, not easy. It's not easy, but it's easier than you think.
Yeah.
You know? It's not impossible.
It's possible. I think the word is it's possible.
It definitely comes through just me, your body language and everything. I know that's your passion without a doubt. I get it right away. That's great. So I just had a question. Now, how do you combine comedy and playing guitar together? Like, what does that look like? I hear it, but I'm just trying to understand how that works together. It seems like it would be very interesting to watch. So this is my first time hearing that concept. I'm just wondering how that works. If you could explain a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question because especially if you haven't heard it, what I do, or if you haven't heard the specifics on it, you're like, what is he talking about? There's a guy. First of all, obviously parodies and funny songs. You know, I take I'll take a boy band song and I'll change that. I'll take the biggest thing I have on YouTube by a lot. The most views I have is I wrote a parody of Taylor Swift's "You Belong with Me," and it's called "You Need a Nerd Like Me." And I shot a funny little video for it, and it's not viral, but it's over 6 million views, so it's pretty good, and it's got a lot of subscribers, and it's a parody. So that's one way. Number one, you write funny songs and you play them. But what I wanted to do was, I had a what if question, and what if is the name of my presentation. What if you could make somebody laugh without saying a word? What if could the notes of music be funny? And I don't know if you realize this, there's a piece by Mozart, which is called, the title of it's in German, but whatever German is for, it's called A Musical Joke. And so if you listen to parts of it, not the whole thing, but parts of it are funny. They make me laugh. And you guys would too. You'd get it as a musician as he goes to this part, and then he goes, instead of what you think, it goes to something different. And it's funny. Right. And I'm a nerd. I'm like, okay, psychologically, how is he creating setup and punchline with just notes?
Exactly.
So what I did was one of the first ones I came up with along those lines was, if you remember the old song "Dueling Banjos," the little bluegrass thing. And the banjo would play a part, the guitar would play a part, da-da-ding, dun, 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 and the banjo would answer it back, da-da-ding, dun, ding, dun, ding, dun, dun, and they go back and forth. And so I thought, well, I'll play both the parts, but what if the banjo player is from Baghdad? So it's all Phrygian and Mixolydian mode stuff, okay? So da-da-ding, dun, 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 dun. You know, and I do little drone strings and stuff like that, so it sounds like a sitar. And it's genuinely funny, you know, and and it worked. Okay. And so people would laugh, and there's no lyric. And
No,
they laugh
Mike.
at it.
No, Mike. The one I like the most that you've talked about, and I think you've even done in some of your shows, is when you talked about playing in country clubs in Nashville, and you'd run out of material, and so you'd start taking some of the popular different types of songs, even hip hop songs, and then turning them into country.
Country versions of hip hop. Yeah. When you hear a country version of Beyonce, that's scary.
Oh, wow.
And you're laughing at the concept, right? And so what I do is, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies. If you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it. Don't be mad once you hear that he was. And I do the dance. You just find a few of her signature moves, and it becomes funny because
that's great.
You do not want to see me trying to dance like Beyonce.
Right.
So if you do, it's funny. So anyway, I do that, and doing
the dogs out.
Country Riding Dirty, or Flo Rida, apple bottom jeans and the boots with the fur. The whole club was looking at her. She hit the floor. Next thing you know, shawty got low. Okay, and that's doing Flo Rida to the tune of Beverly Hillbillies.
Right.
And so that whole like one song fitting to another song's melody, that completely to me. And so I would, so anyway, but they're weird things, so they work.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, and that's it. Music is a universal language, right?
It is. It really is.
Everybody can understand it in one way or another.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of that. Wow.
Yeah.
In fact, I just did that. Bit. I just had a showcase Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I pre-recorded the thing, but I had a showcase Tuesday morning for meeting planners, people who do put on events in Mexico and Latin America. And I can't use everything. Like I do Led Zeppelin singing Dr. Seuss. Well, they wouldn't know Led Zeppelin or Dr. Seuss, so it wouldn't be funny. But I did country versions of Beyonce and Ricky Martin and Baha Men and they laughed because they get, even though they don't listen to country, they get what country is. So if you don't listen to country and you think it's kind of hokey or whatever, and you do that hokey version of something that's not a hokey song, and it becomes funny. And so even you talk about international, most of them didn't speak English, yet they got that.
Yeah, because they get the melody and the tone and where you're going with it. Exactly.
That's awesome.
So, Mike, obviously, to do what you're doing requires a lot of practice, and I want to thank you for the story that you gave me for the book as well, where we talk a lot about, it's the chapter I talk about improving yourself and practicing. What's your philosophy on practicing? What's your thoughts about practicing?
I got a bunch of them. First of all, you have to practice. You can't not practice. Okay, so it's not an option. Second of all, consistency. Consistency is a big word for me, and it's not a sexy word. Nobody cares about consistency, but consistency is the most powerful. I think it's the most powerful human force on the planet. Here's why. If you take, for instance, water and wind flowing over rock has done more to change the earth than all the blasting and earth moving equipment on the planet. Tucking a little money away each month has created more wealth than all the winnings in Vegas and lotteries combined. Exercising and eating the right foods on a daily basis has done more to change people's health than all the pills and the most powerful pills in the world. Okay, right. It's a matter of consistency. What do you do every day, or what do you do regularly? Sometimes it's not every day, but sometimes it's for instance, I don't go to the gym every day, but I do it consistently. I do it every other day or so. So consistency in practice is huge. Consistency in everything. Consistency in thought. What you think about, we just said this earlier, what you think about most often, you get. Okay, and so that means consistency. You can't just have a positive thought followed by a bunch of negative thoughts. You go, well, I had a positive thought. It's like, well, did you have it a lot? Because it's what you think about most often. That's consistency. And then if you think negative thoughts consistently, that's what you get. It's a powerful force.
Right.
Nelson Mandela and Adolf Hitler were both extremely consistent men.
That's true.
Okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
They were both consistent and powerfully consistent. You know, Mandela, how many years? 27 years, 28 years in jail? Consistently positive. The guards loved him. The guards, he was doing what transformed South Africa 28 years before he got out of prison. He was practicing the same thing. That's power. Okay? That's power on a level that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Hitler was doing the same thing. Stalin was doing the same things long before they got into power. It's what put them into power, and it was horrible, okay? But you have to look at what was the power behind it. The power behind it, consistency. So choose what you want to be good at, and choose the practices that will get you there, and do them consistently. And it's almost like you can't not do it. I mean, you'll get what you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I believe that. And then the other thing is I think we talked about this, is what Anders Ericsson calls deliberate practice.
Yeah.
Deliberate practice. Okay, I can pick up. Okay, I have certain guitar solos. Okay, you guys are both musicians. You have certain things you love to play. Certain things you sit down and I just love to do this. I like to picture myself on stage doing this. I like to picture just doing it in front of the girl that I'm after. I want to picture myself, and you just do that thing you love. And you could do that for 12 hours a day, every single day, and not get that much better. You get better at that one thing, but not that much better. So the idea of deliberate practice is to focus on the things within the context of what you do well. Okay, meaning for me it'd be guitar, bass, whatever you play.
Yeah.
Whatever you do well, okay, looking at the things that you know you need to improve. And so, like, let's say, for instance, Bohemian Rhapsody, doing a classical guitar version of Bohemian Rhapsody is a big part of my show. And so I will practice that, and I will practice it at half speed, way slower than anybody would ever perform it. Because if I can play it perfectly at slow speed, all I have to do is speed it up. But if you play it with mistakes at a faster speed, you're just speeding through mistakes. That's not that important. So you guys know I'm preaching to the choir, but so let's say I'm playing that, and then I know, in fact, I already know certain parts of it that are the part that goes, spare him this life from this monstrosity. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. So I'm playing the bass line, dun, 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 and I'm playing the melody, and then the piano part, in two different, all together. Well, that's for some reason that's difficult for me. So almost always when I practice that piece, I will stop, because I know it's, if I don't get it when I'm playing it, if I don't nail it, I'll stop and I'll go dun 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 dun, over and over again. Practice the mistake out, and then I'll move on. And then another part, put a gun against his head, pull my trigger down, now he's dead. That part I have to play a bass line, doom doom doom, and then I go da 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 da. That's the melody, and the piano's going ding 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 ding. I'm doing with false harmonics. So those are all going at the same time, and I mess that up sometimes. So I'll go over and over and over again. And that's the idea, is what Anders Ericsson identified, is that he was studying virtuoso piano players.
Yeah.
And these are all on that world-class level.
Yeah.
But who are the ones who did better who were the better of the world class, right? And the ones, he found that the ones who practiced the piece all the way through and maybe made a mistake, and they might have remembered to go back and fix it, and they might not, were not as good as the ones who practiced, and when they made a mistake, stopped and practiced it out, played it over. I heard Phil Keaggy, if you know who he is, as a guitarist. Phil Keaggy's one of the greatest. Jimi Hendrix was asked one time, what does it feel like to be the greatest guitarist in the world? And he said, I don't know, ask Phil Keaggy. Phil Keaggy is a monster. He's a Christian guitarist. And I got him to play 2 songs on my last album. It's scary how good he is, and how first take he is.
Because he's the one that you interviewed, right, for that mastery.
Masters, yeah.
It's like a master's program video that you created.
Yeah. the Masters Talk About Master, whatever, I forget.
Yeah, something like
My
that.
own DVD, and I forgot the name of it. Anyway, so, but I interviewed him about that, about what he does and how he practices and things like that. And he'll say that when he gets something that doesn't work, he'll practice. In fact, he'll do it. Those of us who play wound strings know the sound of your fingers across this, a bass string or a guitar string, right? That he'll practice till you don't hear that, which is crazy. Because I don't know, I'm not that good. But anyway, the key there is deliberate practice, and that's what. So deliberate practice is focusing on the things that you didn't do well and working on them. Take it for my speech. I'll give the last one as an example. I had for my What If keynote presentation. There was a woman named Chris Young. She loves my telling the story. She booked me in Minneapolis to perform for what was at the time ING Corporation. They're now Voya. Financial Services is one of my big issues, and that I present for. And I did it. Oh, it was a killer show. You guys know the feeling. You just got everything you do works. And then they had me do an encore. And when I was done, I sold every piece of product that I brought to sell off the stage in the back. And I am a rock star. And I go to sit down, and this is back, I don't drink anymore, but I was going to have a glass of wine with Chris afterwards and just get my due accolades, right? And I sat down with Chris, and she said, I'm going to quote exactly. She said, Mike, that was good. Would you like to know how you can be great?
Wow.
I was like, what? They just stood up for me. And what she did was I said, yes. And she said, your bike trip story. I did the first ever cross-country concert tour on bicycle back in the year 2000. Again, things that nobody's done. So I rode a bike across the country and did 31 concerts along the way.
Wow.
And so literally rode the whole way. And so I tell the story of that. And the way I was telling the story, it was slow. It wasn't working. It wasn't as good as the rest of the show. And so she told me that. And as soon as she said it, I knew she was right. I was like, you're right. And audiences, on one hand, will forgive that, especially if the rest of the show is really strong.
Right.
They'll forgive that and they'll move on with it.
Right.
But if you want to move forward, you need to identify that and move forward. You know that with people who hear you play and they'll go, gosh, that's awesome. But you hear some of the mistakes you make and they didn't hear them, or they excused them, or their minds just kind of went past them. But you as a musician know that if you put that on recording and you listen back to it, you'd hear that mistake. And other musicians would hear it. In which case, it doesn't mean you were bad. It just means that's your next step, is to cover. Right. So if we want to get better, we need to identify those. And the thing I'm going to write my next What If Weekly is going to be about this, or one of them coming up. What is it that makes you good, but keeps you from being great?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a
what is it that makes you good? Because if I have a comedy show that's good, if I want to get better, I've got to drop something that's already working. Yeah. In hopes I can make something that works better.
Yeah.
But I've got to drop it hard. When you know it's working, to drop it and move to something else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it also means that you have to remain humble throughout this whole process and be open to getting feedback and listening to others and allowing people to throw cold water in your face, but look for the goal inside of the bucket that they throw the water from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which Gerald, I will say that's something I've always admired about you, because you showed up like for the What If weekend. You showed up. I mean, you're good. You're great. I'm kind of going, why is he here? You were here. You were there to learn.
Exactly.
My friend Dave Gordon showed up when I was a long time ago when I presented for the National Speakers Association of Ohio.
Yeah.
And Dave Gordon is a long-time established speaker. I mean, everybody looks up to him. And he showed up, and he was in the front row of my presentation, hearing me talk about speaking. And I thought, what in the world is he doing here? What in the world could he learn from me? And the fact is, we can learn from people. I mean, I remember one time I used to do this medley thing at the end, and I was doing a part of the medley was Aerosmith's Dream On, and that little ding, 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 the riff, the famous riff from it. And I finished the show, and I was getting, people telling me I'm great and all that stuff. And this kid had been playing guitar for maybe 4 or 5 years, came up and said, how did you do that Aerosmith thing? And I was like ready to show him and everything. And he's like, wow, because I do it differently. I said, well, and I'm open. I said, show me how you do it. And he played it, and he played it right. And I heard it, and I went, thank you. I just learned something. Do what you're doing, because I'm going to as well. Right? And I was wrong. And I learned, so you named it. The word there is humble. You got it. If you're not humble, man, you ain't going to get anywhere.
Yeah. As an artist, we have to be able to take constructive criticism.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, their egos get all the way up here, and what do you mean? These people love me? Just like you said, some people would have just like brushed her off, but being able to, yeah, you're right, really, being authentic with where you are and what you need to work on. That's one of the things I appreciated with Grover Washington Jr. When we would do sound checks, I mean, we just rehearsed all week before we went out on the road, and we would do these sound checks, and he would go through the whole set and just play it like Grover Washington Jr.
Oh, yeah, wow, yeah.
So I was the music director for him for years, and I learned so much just by exactly all the things you're saying. He would go over songs over and over and over and get that part just right. And I was just amazed because, well, it's a sound check. Nobody's here. And he would play it like it was a full audience, So that consistency, I mean, that the little by little principle, as you talked about, practicing is so important. As a man, that's who he is.
Yeah.
Your mindset, all of that is so important. And I'm learning a lot myself just listening to this.
Well, and I'm interested to know how what I'm saying does it align with what you think, Donald?
Exactly.
I know more, but I don't know you as well, Donald. So I'm
100%. It aligns 100% the principles and how. As you're talking, I'm thinking about different players that I, being a keyboard player and being sideman for a lot of jazz players, I just kind of observed. And Kurt Willem, who played, with Whitney Houston and played all those amazing solos that you hear, he was another one. He would come and he would just practice running up and down scales for an hour before the show. And, everybody's looking like we're waiting for him to play like this incredible, sax lines, and he's pulling out a classical book. And we're thinking, okay, but he's not playing like that on the record. He's just playing skills, but that's what it was. That's what he needed to do, really get that perfection and understand, this is what I need to do to play the way that I play. Right. So it helped me by observing people like that to know that, okay, even in college, going past a piano room and hearing these virtuoso piano players who, for hours and hours, I'll go out to lunch and they're still playing this major scales up and down the piano. Same thing, consistency, repetition.
Right. Right. Yeah, it really is about mastering your instrument, mastering the mindset. And thinking about mastery, and we're going to kind of land this thing because we've been going for a little while, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, Mike and Donald. But Mike, you do something with a mastermind group. You want to share a little bit about that?
I do a few things. I have, and there's sort of like different grades of it, but I have something called Goldmine Zooms, which I know you were part of it. You've been part of. Goldmine Zooms are where, again, to create consistency, a monthly call with me and about 5 or 6 others, like-minded achiever people who I created this because I do care. I do want people to do well. And so I thought, well, we could do a monthly call. And I mean, there's a fee, but it ends up being like, if you do it for every time for the year, it's like $20 a time or something like that. It's really pretty cheap. And what you get is you get a chance to, the idea is to achieve your goal within a year, and whatever the goal is. I mean, obviously, it depends on what the goal is, but, and it's up to you. It's ultimately up to you. But what we do is we offer a chance to share have you done the things that you planned to for the past month?
Yeah.
What's holding you back? How can you help with what's in your way? Are you not having enough time? You get distractions. You limiting mindsets, limiting beliefs. You not have enough money, not have enough, whatever it is. And then any other questions that you have. And so it's what I would call kind accountability. We all need accountability, but we don't want accountability where we're all, like, you didn't do what you were supposed to, that mean kind of thing. No, this is kind of it's uplifting accountability for you each month. And then you have access to me via email anytime you want throughout, because what if you have a question 2 weeks after the meeting? Well, email me, I'll answer you. So I have that. And then I'm working my way up. I have something that's going to be happening called the Virtuoso Mastermind, where we focus on things like, the intricacies of, it all comes down to, all the things we've talked about there are consistency, but we're fleshing those out, really getting to it. What practice is, what are your practices? If you do your practices every day, you'll achieve your goal without even know what your goal is. Right. Okay. If you do those practices. But there's the idea is to become world class, you have to embrace the law of diminishing returns. And that's what I call it. The fact is, as you get better, it takes more to achieve less. So, in other words, Gerald, where you are with your playing.
Yeah.
And Donald, you as well. I'm just saying that I don't know you playing, but if you're music director for Grover Washington, you're freaking good. And if you're working with Gerald, you're freaking good. And so I know that, okay? And I'm hearing you talk. I have no doubt, okay? So for you to get better now takes a lot more work than it did back when you were trying to figure out how to do a minor 7 chord, okay? A minor 7 chord, you do that now without thinking about it. You can do inversions of it. You can do it however you want to. You can, do tritone substitutions of it and whatever you can. Okay, well, but to get better, to really move forward on that, to really get to the intricacies of what's good, it takes you a lot more practice. I kind of look at it like stereo speakers, like the speakers in your audio speakers in your studio. The difference in a $500 set of speakers and a $1,000 set of speakers is a hell of a lot greater than the difference in a $1,000 set of speakers and a $2,000 set. It costs you a lot more, but you don't get that much better. And then to get from a $2,000 to a $4,000, it's still not that much better, but you have to spend that much more because there's not that much more room. And so what people at Juilliard practicing, those people in those practice rooms that you're talking about, like over and over and over again, it's those little intricacies that make them that much better. And it takes a whole lot more work to achieve a lot less.
That's true. Yeah.
But when you embrace that, that's when you become world class.
Yeah.
When you're willing to put in all that extra work for just Jerry Seinfeld will work a year to try to take an 11-word joke down to 8 words because it's funnier at 8 words than it is at 11. And it takes a year to do that. Now, to write the original joke didn't take much at all, but to hone it down to that take a whole lot of work. Yeah. And that's what we do in the Virtuoso Mastermind. Awesome. And that's a by invitation, but if people are interested, I love to have them let me know they're interested in it. And that's, I'll be launching that. It's not launched yet, but I'm kind of putting that together. So those are both, just email me, mike@mikerayburn.com, or go to mikerayburn.com for the Goldmine Zooms. That's very obvious on the bottom right of the page. It's right there.
Yeah, we'll put the web link of your website on the notes as well. Donald, did you have any other questions that you want to ask, or anything else?
Man, I'm just absorbing all this. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
You're kind, man. You're kind.
Same here. So Mike, I want to ask you.
The only question that
go ahead.
Ask is that you kind of touched on it a little bit, but
go ahead.
For the younger people that's out here and who want to kind of get started into even some of the things that you're doing, what advice would you give them?
Yep, that's where I was going.
Okay, so people who are young and getting started, okay?
Yeah.
Again, make sure it's something you love and you have a knack for. Don't, it would be, for instance, I love cycling. I love endurance sports, and I'm also flat-footed. So that's God's way of saying, learn what you can from this, but it ain't your destiny. So it keeps me in shape, but I'm not going to be on the Tour de France. So something you're good at that you have a knack for. And then identify what you want to do and start practicing, start learning. And I also, this is a kind of weird thing, and I think you guys would agree with this. I know Gerald. Emulate your heroes.
Yeah.
Emulate your heroes. I I practice the solo on Hotel California all the time. I practice different artists' stuff all the time because the fact is I can't do it. But what happens in the process of doing that is you end up with your own style.
Yeah.
You end up, because you listen to, you know, on one hand, I'm listening to, like I grew up on Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm just a big Earth, Wind, and Fire fan. And so I listen to the guitar players in there. I listen to the bass player's monster.
Yeah.
I listen to, and Bootsy Collins. I got him up on the wall over here.
Yeah.
Bootsy's over there. Bootsy. So I listen to that stuff and try to emulate it because I used to be a bass player too. That's why I secretly follow you, Gerald, because I you know, I'm nobody's bargain as a bass player today. But anyway, try to emulate, try to sound like and play like your heroes, because you'll get there close, but you won't get there. And what will happen in the process, because you listen to different people, a different combination of things that anyone else has listened to, you'll develop your own style.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, folks, if you've been listening to this conversation, hopefully you can rewind and listen to it again. There were so many gems and so many just great pieces of advice. Mike, thank you for your time. And I know that
awesome. You guys are fantastic, man. Thank you. Give me a chance to talk. I love it. You know.
Yeah, folks who are listening are going to enjoy it, and also that's going to be uploaded eventually onto the Workplace Jazz YouTube channel. And again, thanks so much. If you want to learn more about Mike, go to MikeRayburn.com. And again, you know, Mike is a 2-time TEDx, a multi-Carnegie Hall performer, and a Hall of Fame speaker. So, Mike, thanks so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Really appreciate you, man.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You guys are awesome, man.
All right.
Thank you, Gerald.